So like so. And then you come to sitting and then lie down onto your mat. Now I've said all of this to you quite a lot of times before, but when you come down onto your bolster like this, you don't want to have it wedged up to the low back so that when you lie back, you're sort of forcing the abdomen up. So you want to have a little bit of a gap between either the bolster or cushion or whatever it is in your low back, so that when you lie back, your tummy's on a nice gentle angle. And then you bring the upper body back. Now, if that feels like your head is hanging too far back, which it can do sometimes, depends how we're feeling, depends how the neck is, then you could take a block or something else just to raise the level of the head a little bit. So you can do that. And then with the legs, you could either have TP legs like this, just knees bent like so. You could stretch the legs away. You might want to bring the soles of your feet together. You might even want to do cross legs. So again, it depends how your body feels tonight. So you might want to take a couple of variations, try them, and then see which one feels nicer. And then the arms, depending how your shoulders are, you could either rest the hands on your tummy, you could have the arms down by your side, you could take them out, you could have cactus arms. You might want to take the arms up above your head. So again, try a couple of shapes, see which one feels nicer. And then just start to settle into your practice. So you can just invite yourself to arrive into your yin practice, your yin zone. I'm just going to focus a little bit tonight on just finding that stillness within the practice. Also, I'm going to try not to talk so much as well. So I'll leave you to find your stillness a little bit more. So, as I've talked quite a lot about in the past, you know, our yin practice can really help us to make that switch, can't it, from being in that sort of stress response, the action of the sympathetic nervous system, where we're thinking quickly and everything's happening, we move from one thing to the next all the time, more into the relaxation response, the action of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is more of our sort of rest and digest relaxation response. But very often, the mind wants to wander away, doesn't it? So we're in a supported fish, Lydia, with the bolster at the low back, and then we're lying back onto it, and then we're choosing our position with our arms and our legs. Okay, so very often the mind just wants to wander away. It's like those thoughts are always coming and going, and there's nothing that we can do about that, is there? But when you notice that happening, and you notice your mind running away or starting to create a story from a thought, let's see if you can come back to that awareness. You could focus on your breath. Try to be in the present moment with your breath. So we can use a simple mantra to help us to do that. You can just say to yourself, I am here, or I am breathing in and I am breathing out. So you could choose your mantra. And then every time you find your mind wandering off, see if you can bring yourself back. Start to use your exhales to relax you here into your supported fish pose. It's beginning to carefully scan your body and let go of any grips or areas that you're holding or tensing. Let's feel all of those parts of you that are in touch with your mat, and let them feel heavier with each exhale. Relax your jaw. Soften your throat. And just see if you can find that place of stillness within you. Okay, we'll just take about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then just very gently, you can either roll over to one side to come off your bolster if that feels appropriate, or you can just use the hands to gently ease your way up. And then we'll start to set up straight away for our next pose. I'm going to come into caterpillar pose. So this is a forward bend. And choice tonight, actually, if you wanted to have the focus more on extending your spine, then you could take your cushion or your bolster and just take it below the knees, and then you'll feel the stretch more in your back. If you prefer to keep the stretch more to the backs of the legs, then you can have the legs down on the mat. You might want to sit on your blanket here to just raise the level of the hips a little bit. You might want to take the flesh away from the sit bones. But wherever you are, we'll inhale, take the arms up, find a little bit of length, and then exhale, ease your way forward. And as soon as that feels intense, you just release the arms down. And whichever version, let go of the weight of the head. And that just helps us to switch the mind off. And then beginning to soften into that shape. And remember, if your mind is still busy and it's wandering off, just come back to that mantra. You could either, I am here, or I am breathing in, and I am breathing out. Just keep bringing yourself back to the present moment. Okay, just about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then just putting a bit of weight into the hands to ease your way up from whichever variation you come into. And then if you've come into the variation where you're supporting the knees, we'll just move that support out of the way. And then take the hands behind you. You might just want to bring the knees up and down, point and flex the feet even. Okay, we'll come into a supported banana pose. Well, we did this the other week. So again, bolster or cushion, but this time we're going to lay it horizontally across the mat. And then you might want to take your blanket or something to support your head. And then have a bit of a gap between the bolster and the blanket for your arm. And then we sit sideways with the right hip up against or towards the bolster. And then we just lay ourselves over the bolster so that the bolster is supporting the ribs. And then the right arm can reach away. And then you can use your blanket or a block or something to support your head there. Okay, and then you might want to adjust the legs. You can keep the knees bent here if you want to. You might want to straighten away with the top leg. You might straighten away with both legs. You might try a couple of positions with your legs and just find one that feels nice. And you could, if you wanted to as well, bring that left arm overhead. And then you get a much more of a stretch all the way along the left-hand side of the body. You might adjust and sort of lean a bit forward there. You might adjust and lean a little bit back. Again, try both and see which one feels nice for you. And then we'll start to relax there. Release your jaw. Relax your throat. Relax deeply behind your eyes. Use your exhales to relax you. Scan your body all the way from the crown of the head to the tips of the toes. And make sure that you're not gripping, holding, tensing. And you relax the back of your tongue. And just about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then just using your left hand to push the floor away to come up. And then we'll come straight around to the other side. So just turning yourself around, moving nice and slowly. Don't be in a rush. And then the left hip is up towards the bolster. And then you lay the left-hand side of the body down. Rib cage is supported by the bolster. And then the left arm reaches out straight in front. Use your block or a blanket or something to support your head. Try a couple of leg positions, see which one feels more comfortable. And then that right arm can come overhead as well, so that you get the stretch all the way along the right-hand side of the body. You might tilt yourself a little bit forward, you might come back. Just see which position feels nicest for you. And then start to settle into that shape. And just noticing with kind awareness when your mind starts to wander off. And bring it back to the present moment. I'm breathing in. And I am breathing out. Okay, just about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then just using your right hand to push the floor away to come out nice and slowly, nice and gently. And then we'll just come to seated for a moment. So just coming into a cross legs or any comfortable seated position. You can just rest the hands either on the knees or in the lap. I just want you to observe how your body feels now. Maybe you can notice a bit more spaciousness around the ribs and into the sides of the body. Maybe you can send your breath there. Okay, we'll make our way to our next shape. So I'm going to give you a choice for this one. I'm going to target the inner thighs and outer hips. So you could, if you wanted to, come into a butterfly pose. And I think we're all very familiar with butterfly. It's the one where we bring the soles of the feet together and we have this sort of diamond shape here with the legs. Butterfly can be made more intense by putting your feet up on a block. If you're very familiar and comfortable with it, you could do that variation. Or we're going to do a frog pose. So frog can be quite intense. That's why I'm giving you the choice. And if you've never done frog before, you might want to try it, but you might regret it. And you might want to use your blanket to support your knees if you're coming into the frog pose. So with frog, sort of a similar position with the legs, but we are on our front. So we come onto our blanket. We're going to use the bolster as well, maybe. So it's quite nice to do this when you do the bolster. Have the bolster in front of you or your cushion or whatever. And then we take the knees quite wide. And then I give you the choice here of either having the toes pointing in towards each other, a little bit less intense, or turning the feet out and being on the inner edges of the feet. And then you might take the knees a little bit wider. Notice if you take the hips back here, the difference it makes, and notice the difference it makes if you bring the hips a little bit further forward as well. Then you can come down onto your elbows and maybe let the knees widen a little bit more, maybe sort of adjust the foot position a little bit more. And then if you're going to use the bolster, you can bring it in just below your torso, and then you can lie yourself over your bolster. And then just notice that sort of moving the hips either forward or back, what a difference it makes. So you want to find a place here that you can stay. Remember, we talk about finding sort of the first edge, so we come to a place where we can feel that we're at the edge. It's not too intense. Don't go in too deep too quickly, especially with this one. Of course, you can stick to the butterfly if you're not comfortable with this, and then start to relax. So it's quite nice to use the bolster here, but you don't need to. You can always be down on the floor as well. So it's up to you. Settle in, frog pose. Make sure that you're not gripping into your hips, whether you're in butterfly or frog. Release your jaw. And relax your throat. If you feel that your edges softened, you might take the hips a little bit further back, and then you find another edge. Anytime your mind wanders off, just gently bring it back to the present moment. I am here. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. Okay, just about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then whichever pose we've chosen, just make sure that you come up nice and gently. You might bring the feet back together from the frog and then ease your way up. Bring the knees back towards each other gently. And then we're just going to come down to lying on our backs for a moment. So just come to lying flat, just for a little bit of a rebound. And just to let those sensations subside. Let your body digest. Quite intense, that frog pose, isn't it? So is butterfly, actually. Just observing how your body feels. Maybe noticing which parts of you touch your mat as you lie here. Maybe you'll notice areas that are heavier. Okay, from here we'll follow the path of least resistance, so just rolling over to one side and then coming all the way onto your front. And then just come to lying on your belly for a moment. And you can make just a little pillow with the hands. And either rest your chin on one side of your face, let the heels drop out. And I want you to just observe how your low back feels here as you lie here now. So actually, even lying on our front like this, you know, if your back's sensitive or you've got back issues, you know, even just lying here, you might feel some sensation in your back. And if you do, then you might want to stay here. I mean, this is actually a yin pose in its own right, a belly pose, I think it's called. So you might just want to stay here and let your low back soften. Otherwise, we'll come up to a Sphinx pose. So you could come up, bring your elbows below the shoulders and come into a standard Sphinx there with your forearms in a number 11. You might want to do the supported variation of this, which I quite like, which is nice because it just takes the effort out of the pose, doesn't it? And you can really soften into your low back. So if you're going to do the supported version, you take the bolster, support your rib cage or your cushions or pillow or whatever you have. And then you can start to settle into your Sphinx there. And it's quite nice to just have the gaze sort of diagonally down, somewhere between the hands, so that the back of the neck is nice and long and smooth, there's no strain there. You might even want to take your block and support the head. It's another choice. And then we start to work our way up from the tips of the toes, softening. And you can do that as many times as you need to. You might notice how the exhales relax you. And you relax deeply behind your eyes. So deep into your brain. So just about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then we'll just gently press the floor away to come up. If you're on your support, then you just move that out to the side. And then just come to lying on your belly again, just for a moment. Observe the sensation that you have. And then just bring the hands below the shoulders, push our way up to all fours. And then when you get to your table top position, you might want to move a little bit. You might just want to sway a bit into the hips or draw a couple of circles with the hips, maybe bring the weight forward and back. So do whatever feels nice. Maybe cat-cows are calling to you and you want to do a couple of those. So just bring any movement in that feels nice. Maybe you come back to a child's pose briefly and then come back up. So just whatever feels nice, whatever you feel that you need to do for your back. Okay, from our tabletop position, we'll take the weight to the left and step the right foot forward. I'm not coming into dragon, I'm coming into sleeping swan. So it's quite nice to have the blanket still. So it's quite nice to pad my left knee here, so you might keep your blanket. Remember with pigeon, if you really don't like pigeon, you can do the reclined version. So it's more like that sort of figure of 4 shape that we do. If you want to do that instead, do that. Otherwise, right foot walks over to the left. And then we lay the outside of the right calf and shin down. Now, if that feels intense for your knee, or if in doubt, you bring this right foot closer to your left hip. So you adjust it, and I think we all know, I'll practice enough to know where we come into this. Lay the outside of the calf down, and then stretch back through the left leg. Make sure that, looking over your shoulder, make sure that you haven't really reached that left leg out to the side. The right hip can be supported either by a block or a cushion or whatever if you need to, and then you just ease your way forward into our sleeping swan. Should call it sleeping swan in yin, not pigeon. And then start to unpick, unwind, and let go. So the left hip is rolling down and the right hip any amount moving back. So it's just a subtle energetic movement. So we're not sort of twisting the pelvis. And you can make it more intense again if you want to. Left arm can tuck under the right and you can come onto your left shoulder. So it's your variation. Do what feels nice in your body. Okay, just about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then very gently making your way back up from your sleeping swan. And then tucking the toes, left foot, bring the left knee forward, and we'll just find our way back to that all fours position. You might just want to stretch the right leg back actually. That's quite a nice little rebound movement there. You can push back through that right heel, bring the weight a little bit back and forward. Okay, and then we'll set up for the other side. So weight comes to the right, left foot steps forward, and then taking that left foot over to the right, adjusting the position, doing the reclined version if you prefer, and then reaching back through the right leg. Just have a quick look over the shoulder, make sure that you're not letting that leg point out to the side too much, and then you come forward. Pad out that left hip if you need to as well. As always, coming into your sleeping swan. And if you feel that it's appropriate, you can take the right arm under the left and come into that slightly twisted variation. It's a little bit more intense, so just do what feels nice in your body. Okay, just about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then just gently pressing the floor away to come up. Just come up really slowly, moving really slowly in these transitions. And then we'll tuck the toes on the right foot. And then bring the left knee back. And you might just want to stretch back with that left leg and press back through the heel. So any movement there that feels nice. Okay, and then for the next pose, I'm going to give you the choice as well. So for the next pose, I want to target hip flexors and quadriceps. So we can do the half Virasana or half saddle pose, we call this. Oh no. So you can do half Virasana or half saddle pose with, we'll take the left knee back first. So it would be this position. So we bend the knee so that the calf is next to the thigh. and we can be in that position. Now I know that some of us really don't like that. We're stretching the front of the left thigh. So if that's not working for you in your knees, and the sort of variation where you take the shin a bit out to the side really doesn't work for you either, then you could come into the lovely dragon pose, because that stretches the same place, doesn't it? So you could take the right foot forward and then bring the left knee back and come into that position. So it's the same target area. So if you prefer to do that instead, then do that. And again, you can always use blocks here. You could use your bolster to bring the floor closer. You do whatever. If you're coming into the half saddle pose, as we call it in yin, then you're going to lean back, but you might only lean back onto your hands. You might lean back a little bit. So if your quads are particularly tight and your hip flexors are particularly tight, you might be coming back something like this. You might find that you can come back onto your elbows. You might be able to lie all the way down, but even if you can lie all the way down, you might want to come onto your bolster. So this is a really nice variation, I think. So you might want to do this and then just lie down onto your bolster. So up to you. Do whichever variation is going to suit your body tonight. It's quite nice just to explore our own practice a little bit, isn't it? And to try different versions of things, different ways of targeting the same part of your body, because every day we feel different. And you can explore your practice a little bit, see what works for you. And just noticing if your mind wanders away. See if you can bring it back to the present moment. And the more that we practice that, the easier it gets, doesn't it? So in any mindfulness or meditation practice, the mind does wander. That's what it does, isn't it? Thoughts do come and go. But developing that awareness and ability to just come back to the present moment whenever that starts to happen. It's what a mindfulness practice is all about, really, isn't it? So you learn to master your mind, as opposed to being the other way around with your mind controlling you. Just about another 2 or 3 breaths, whichever pose we've chosen. And then just easing your way up gently out. And if you've come in the half thrasana, we'll just stretch the left leg away. You can Pad the knees up and down, point and flex. If you were in your dragon pose, you might want to come to your tabletop and move around a little bit there. So just a little bit of a rebound movement or stretch, whichever version you chose. And then we'll do the other side. So targeting the front of the right thigh, right hip flexors in the half saddle, or in the dragon, the left foot would step forward. So again, your choice. Do whichever one feels nicest in your body. And then settle in. Okay, just about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then you just ease your way up from whichever stretch you've chosen, whichever pose you've chosen. And then you might make your way to tabletop from your dragon, or you might just stretch the right leg out from your half saddle and just point and flex or move in whatever way feels nice. Okay, we're going to come into, we've done this one before, this cat pulling the tail, which is a twist, but I'm going to come into it in a different way tonight. So this way, I hope, gives us the opportunity to control how intense this is a little bit better. So if you come to lying on your right hand side, and you might want to have something to support your head, you might want to have your blanket or your something there. But if you just come to lying on your right hand side, and then to begin with, just support your head with your elbow. And then we're going to stretch the left leg straight out from the hip in front of us. So it's straight and you can feel a stretch on the back of that leg. Now, if you wanted to support that, you could put it up on something, if that was more comfortable. If straight out from the hips too much, you can adjust that as well. So just find a position there that you'll feel okay with. And then we bend the right knee and see if we can reach and take hold of the right toes. Okay, you might choose to stay up here like this on your side. You might lie down. You might want a block there or something to support your head if you're lying down. But if it feels appropriate in your back, then you can start to maybe turn the chest up to the ceiling and work the back of the left shoulder down. And you can stop at any point in between there if that feels too intense for your back. So just find a place here with your cat pulling the tail twist that feels okay. And then just begin to settle in there. And you can use the exhales to just allow the back of that left shoulder to be softening down to the mat. And if it's too much for the left leg, you can always put a little bend in that knee. So just find a variation that works for you. If the twist is too much, you can be more on the side of the body. Find what works for you. And just using any support that you need at all. And just taking about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then we'll release the toes. If you have the toes, we'll bend the left knee. And then just ease your way onto your back. Just for a moment, you might want to keep the knees bent. And just observe any sensation that you have. Just notice what you feel and where you feel it. And then we'll make our way to the other side. So just coming over onto our left. Supporting the head to begin with, so you can come onto the elbow and support the head. And then the right leg reaches out straight from the hip if you can. If it's too much having the leg straight, then you can little bend in the knee, of course. And then you bend the left leg and reach and see if you can take the toes. And you might prefer to stay on your side like that, supporting yourself. You could support your head with a block. You might lie down. You might start to turn your chest up and work the back of the right shoulder down. So you can find wherever this feels nicest for you. And the left arm, I quite like to take the left arm sort of above my head. You can make it a little bit of a shoulder stretch there too if you want to. But play around a little bit and find what works for you. And if it's too much and you've come in too deeply, it's too much for your low back, then it's quite easy to just sort of ease off a little bit, isn't it? You can roll back to your side a bit. So just pay attention to the sensation. And then let go. Notice how your exhales relax you. Okay, just about another 2 or 3 breaths. And then releasing the toes, bending the top knee, just easing your way onto your back. And you might want to keep the knees bent initially, just observe how that feels. Just let your low back settle down. And then we'll stretch the legs away and just find our way to Savasana just for a couple of moments to really relax and let go. So drawing your awareness back in. Noticing all of those parts of you that are touching your mat and letting them feel heavier. Maybe you can notice the parts of you that aren't touching your mat and you can soften them. Release your jaw. Relax deeply into your abdomen. Relaxing deeply behind your eyes. And just letting go. Completely. And then bringing your awareness back to your breath. Beginning to think about moving fingers and toes and then moving them. Taking a nice long, full, deep inhale, having a stretch. So whatever stretch is calling to you, you could take the arms up above the head or you could bring the knees into the chest, just whatever, what feels nice in your body. And then from there, making your way to your left-hand side and finding your way back up to a comfortable seat, whatever that is, so crossed legs or not, whatever. And then we'll bring the hands together, just taking a moment to soften the shoulders, relaxing the facial muscles, and just trying to connect with the whole of your body, and feeling the whole of your body as sensation. And then taking a nice long, full, deep inhale through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth, sigh it out. Namaste. Thank you. Well done. I hope we enjoyed our yin practice tonight. Hope our legs are okay from yesterday morning, actually, for those of us that were there. Have a lovely evening, and I'll be back early morning.
See you later.
Bye. Bye.